Working in a correctional facility in Victoria, Bruce found himself suddenly so ill that he couldn't move. His heart was racing so fast that he thought he was having a heart attack. And yet what he was experiencing was a severe anxiety attack. Bruce had had one of these before, but it was a very, very long time ago. And he decided he was no longer going to allow anxiety to cripple his body, to cripple his mind, and to cripple his enjoyment of life. Listen to Bruce's story. I think a lot of you will find that it resonates with the spaces that you may have been in yourself mentally and emotionally before, or witness someone that you know who has gone through what can be a very distressing time in their lives. Bruce talks about the importance of connection, the importance of emotional support, and the importance of having people around you that you can talk to which is what we're doing here at the WhyMe with Vera-Lee podcast series, is opening the dialogue, starting those conversations and asking those difficult questions that sometimes we want to know the answers, but we're too scared to offend someone to be able to ask. And so Bruce and I also talk about how we believe that being offended is a matter of choice. I also share a personal story about my voice, which gains a lot of attention, particularly since I've started this podcast. And it's a story that I haven't shared publicly before, so I think a lot of you will enjoy getting a little glimpse into where the voice came from and how at one point in time I nearly lost it forever. Thankfully for me, I didn't end up losing my voice after all. And so with my voice, I bring to you Bruce Sanchez.
Have you ever had one of those gut-wrenching moments where life ground you to your knees and you found yourself asking in despair, why me? This podcast is all about sharing your stories and journeys, from asking why me to declaring this is why me. Discover how ordinary human beings like you and I have found their extraordinary levels of hope, courage, compassion, and provided a new perspective for greater potential and self-empowerment during their darkest defining moment. As a creative artist and coach myself, my guests and I discuss the interconnectedness of emotion and transformation in those moments, and how their actions then seize the opportunity for discovering their unfiltered and authentic voice, and ultimately their life's purpose. I invite you to join me each week as we share insights into how adversity can be turned into a unique advantage.
Today's guest is Bruce Sanchez, a life coach and author who was diagnosed with PTSD in February 2020. Bruce now works as a mindset coach, helping law enforcement, emergency services, and high performers who are also struggling with PTSD, as well as stress and anxiety. His first book has been released called Breathe. This is an acronym for Begin, Evaluate, Accept, Transform, and Heart. He says to read this book, you need two things: acceptance and courage. And as he says, it is all about learning the lessons that life provides us and then how to implement them for the life that we want to live. Welcome to the WhyMe podcast, Bruce.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so glad, couldn't be happier.
You're welcome. Now, we ask all the big questions here first, such as, if you had to choose one book that's really impacted your life, what would it be?
Well, I'm about to read it, I guess. I just purchased yesterday. I received it. The High Performance Habits from
Brendan Burchard. I have that. It's a fantastic book. Yeah, I love Brendan. He's one of those people where I feel like he speaks my language.
Yeah.
Very relatable.
It's been like a kind of discovery.
Yeah, he is a discovery. Absolutely. That would be the way that I would refer to him, actually. It's like, he was a good discovery, he was. I like the way that he communicates. He's very clear and very,
He has a lot of clarity around what he's communicating, and he helps you to find your own clarity as well in the way that he teaches. So he's a pretty cool person, I think. Very much a very strong influencer. And for me personally, I identify with that high performance thinking as well through sport. So, yeah, it's sort of a natural gravitation there. I think you'll really enjoy his book.
Yeah, I can't wait.
Yeah, fantastic. What was your defining moment?
It has happened before in the past too, like 20 years ago, but this time it happened in a way that had never happened before. I work as a correctional officer in a medium security prison in Melbourne, and last December, I reckon was the Boxing Day or after Boxing Day. I know it was something before New Year's and after Christmas, and I was conducting counts with my colleague. It was quiet. It was in the afternoon, 4:45, nearly night time. Just everything was quiet, just taking on prisoners with my colleague, and out of a sudden, I start feeling like dizzy. It's like, oh, what is this? And I start like doing this and doing this. Like, what is happening to me? You know, couldn't even breathe. So I made up something. I told my colleague, I just need to go to the toilet. I think I'm going to throw up because I didn't understand what was going on. So I ran towards the nearest toilet. So I went there and I started washing my face, and I started like shaking, like really, 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 really bad. When we work in a prison, we have a duress alarm. I was just close to press the alarm, so because I was having heart attack.
Right.
Yeah, and then I didn't understand anything. So what I did instantly, I closed my eyes and I started deep breathing for a few times, and I cooled down quickly. So I said, "What happened? What is this?" Yeah, I was like, "What is this about?" I didn't understand. So I felt first that I was going to die, and then just a couple of minutes, down again. I was in shock. You know, my supervisor, the other colleague, what's happening? No, I think it's something that I ate. Didn't want to say anything. What were we going to say? I was like, shaking and sweating and didn't understand. So I went back home with my wife. I told my wife, and I said, I don't know what to do. So let's see what happens tomorrow. So the day after, went to work. Nothing happened. I was hyper vigilant, as you might, you know, like, like all the time paying attention to everything.
Yeah.
Nothing happened. So I had 2 days off for the weekend. I woke up like early in the morning around 5:30. I need to go a quick piss. And I was on the toilet and back again. Boom. Early in the morning. And that was really bad. So that was for me a turning point, because I went to my wife and I said, she doesn't speak English, right? And I said, look, if something happens in the next 5 minutes, you need to call this number. I was explaining that to my wife. You need to do this. If I fall down while the ambulance is coming, I told my wife how to do CPR. Can you imagine how? Yeah, my wife was freaking out. What are you talking about? I don't know if it's going to happen, but this happened again, and I don't know what. Now I don't understand anything. So I'm going to, we need to call 000, and then just call the neighbor, do this if something happens in the meantime. And then as soon as I was speaking with my wife in this way, I cooled down again. And I said, you know what? Let's go. I'm going to drive. No, I'm not going to call the ambulance. I'm going to drive, because I know when my focus is in a different thing, instead of thinking about the panic attack, the palpitations. Ready? If I shift my focus, I know I can do something. I can do some stuff.
So focus on driving and...
I did that. I went to the Sunshine Hospitals in Melbourne. They took me there. They put in everything in here, blood test, nothing. Nothing. Healthy as all, because I'm super fit.
Yes, you look super fit.
But they didn't tell me, they didn't even suggest maybe stress or something. And I said, okay, what is this then? I couldn't understand Well, happened again, repeated again the day after, went back to the hospital, and then someone said, maybe it's something related to your stress in the workplace.
Right.
Because you told me you work in a prison, right? And I said, yeah. Let's go to your GP and try to figure it out. Mm-hmm. So I did all the processes. I went to my GP. The GP, I mean, I'm not judging. I mean, doctors now, especially these days, are very busy. I mean, they do their best.
Yeah.
And then the doctor, he said, just wanted to just prescribe medication. I told him, no, this is not about medication. I have my own opinions. This is stress and something. Medication itself is not going to do anything unless I'm doing something else. Mm. So I got a referral to a psychologist, a counselor, and then straight away she told me, Mike, you got this.
Right.
Now you need to do this, and this.
Which was the PTSD.
It was because I was at work. You need to talk to your workplace. You need to talk to the managers. You need to do this because you might need a work cover about that because you need to treat this. You have a stress disorder. I cannot tell you if it's a stress disorder because the psychologist, not psychiatrist, mm-hmm. but you have all the symptoms. Mm-hmm. So I did that. I followed her instructions, and then I got diagnosed by a psychiatrist, and then he actually said, you have a disturbance of conduct, depressed mood, and stress disorders that needs to be treated as PTSD. Because I didn't realize that the last year, from October, November, in the prison, we went through a few situations, right. like continuously. Right. I was fine with that. But I wasn't aware that I was putting too much stress to myself.
Yeah. Well, but PTSD it's an interesting thing to go through because there is a lead up to it that we're often not aware of. So there's things happening and we just deal with it and we think that we're going along okay. We're not aware that this situation and this energy is essentially building up inside of us until we have that moment where it drops us to the floor. Yeah. And we're like, whoa, what is going on here? And so you have the slow burn, if you like, that goes unnoticed. And then all of a sudden it's like, bang, I can't unnotice that anymore. Yeah.
It was exactly like that. Yeah.
Wow. So just so the listeners understand, what is it like working in a correctional facility? So obviously when the hospital realised the sort of work you did, it was their logical conclusion that if physically by the time you got there and everything had settled down that you were physically healthy, that there was something else going on here. What is it about working in that sort of an industry that affects people this way?
Well, from my perspective, how I see things through, I will say the prison or any kind of environment, workplace environment, because I've been working in security in Spain too. I've been through some situations too. From my perspective, it's your perception. It's according to your perception. The prison could be dangerous or could be this or could be that if you really believe that it is the way it is. I'm not saying that it cannot be dangerous at times. It can be because we're dealing with prisoners too. But from my perspective, I had no problems. Like I wasn't aware of having problems like this one because I was enjoying the job and I haven't been assaulted or I've been like verbally abused. That's normal. That's what the prisoners do. It's what you can expect. They call you names and, But at the end of the day, prisoners are just people like us. And then they might call you names, but they're not angry at you. They're probably angry at themselves. So it doesn't bother me that much. You know what I mean? But in my case, what I figured out, it's just that on the top of that, I got a huge background of martial arts. I got black belt in Krav Maga 3 degree, which is one of the probably not one of the most effective and very hard self-defense in the world. It comes from Israel, from the military, from the army. So I have a huge background. So which means like every time we had to go through some situation, many people were relying on myself. So I put it too much pressure to myself because I was like, all right, the team rely on me. I rely on the team too. Don't get me wrong. But because I had that kind of background, my mind was playing me the game like you can be scared, you cannot feel like fear to do this. You're a black belt, you're this, you're that. You know what I mean? It's like I'm not that with you. So on the top of the situation, the environment, I have that trust in myself.
Right.
And that's when everything just exploded.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting concept, stress, because stress in itself is, like you're saying, how we perceive the situations that we're in. And people will interpret things differently, even in the same situation, which we know from, even if you just look at people testifying in a court of law about an event that may have happened where a number of people were involved. Usually there will be slight discrepancies because of even the physical location that someone is in. They're going to see things from a little bit of a different perspective. And also for that filter that we have, that we see the world through. And I think it's important that you recognize your history, and the martial arts training and everything. And like you were saying, after that first panic attack, when you went back to work, you were sort of hyper vigilant because you were looking out for that sign, and that in itself changes that perspective too. What happened then? You get this diagnosis. Yeah. What did you do?
So what happened? I remember when I did all the paperwork that I needed to do. Psychiatrist suggested, or not suggested, he told the company that I need a time off from work. Mm-hmm. So we did all the claim, paperwork. Yeah. So it took nearly a month. But anyways, my claim was accepted. What I did was one thing that I will always remember, because I was with my wife. I was reading the diagnosis, and I was more than PTSD. What really shocked me was the depressed mood. Maybe it's nothing, because my mother is with depression for 40 years right now. Right. She's always living in depression. And sitting there, sentence like a depressed mood, I said, you know what? I'm not going to swear here, but I swear, and I said, nah, this is not me. I'll throw the report. This is not me. It's not who I am, and it's not what I am. And maybe how I felt, which is different.
Yeah.
Into who I am. And I'm going to take action. And then because I was fascinated with self-development, like Tony Robbins and life coaching, NLP, I told my wife, you know what? Now I'm going to do it. Because 2 years ago, I wanted to start this coaching business to get some training. But I started in the prison and being busy. Okay, next time, next time, all the time. And I said, nah. Literally, I said this, enough is enough, finished. Yeah. Full stop. This needs to end now.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, can't ignore it anymore.
Yeah. And I'm happy that happens to me, because sometimes, I'm going to tell you something. For me, the way that I thrive the most is through pain. Okay. It has happened before in my life. I'm not saying that everybody needs to go through pain to thrive, but in my case, it works. And I said, you know what? All right, I'm happy that this happened to me. Now I'm going to take action. And what I did is just, I'll be not obsessed, but for at least 4 months, I completed 400 hours of training.
Wow.
In 4 months, and books, and doing this, and start coaching. And every time I was catching up with my counselor, like it was kind of every 7-10 days. I remember one of the last times she told me, Mike, I barely did anything with you. You always went like a very, very ahead every time. And I said, look, I really appreciate your time, but I'm not going to wait 10 days to tell me what to do or because I'm not going to do it. I really appreciate your time because we still have some conversations. He was asking how this is going, but I'm not going to wait to a doctor, to a medication, or to a psychologist to, you know what I mean? No, I'm not going to be lying on the couch watching Netflix. It's not, no way. I'm going to take action. I'm going to learn from this. And I'm going to help people, because what I found, I've been kicked out from several PTSD Facebook group support thing from Facebook because I was sharing my story in the way that I'm doing right now. And then what I'm saying here, you don't need to suffer years and years to find a solution to this. You don't have to.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that in just a moment, because there are two ways of thinking about PTSD that I'm discovering. There is the group who feel that either there is no recovery or it's a very long road to recovery and a lot of suffering to get there. And then there's the group that understand how much power they actually hold within their own mind, within their own internal environment that they can create to work through that process on almost a fast track level, and that it actually is possible to do that.
Yeah, it's not a race, but it is possible. There's a way out.
Yes. And like you're saying before, that you recognize that going through pain helps you to take massive action, essentially.
Yeah.
There are things that we are motivated by in life. Pain and pleasure are two of the main ones. And for some people, pain, actually feeling pain, like going through a breaking point. And I actually just finished an interview with another lady. Her name is Holly Throb. And she used the example of, we break in horses. And I said, it's interesting that she used that as her example of, having a moment where essentially she felt really broken. And then from that moment, from being in that place, she was able to rebuild, reintegrate, relearn and grow. And for her, we were talking around that it was actually very important in her life to have not the events that happen, but the moment of realization and awareness that she then went, oh, now I realize something majorly needs to change within me, not everybody else around me. And so some people, when they can use pain as a catalyst like that, it also becomes about avoiding that pain again, which is really interesting, because then it's like, well, I have to go through this pain. I know that this is going to be really hard to get through this stuff, and I'm willing to do that. When I get to the other side, there is obviously less pain, and that's a good thing, because I can find other things that will fuel me into continued action. Yeah. So how did you come up with this fast track way for yourself to work through this PTSD?
Well, for me, like I said, the moment that I was reading the diagnosis with my wife, and I said, no, this is not going to happen. This is not me. It's not who I am. And like I said before, some situations happened in the past when I was in Spain. And for me, it's like, no, there is no plan B for this. I know there is a way out. And I'm going to spend, I know it might sound a bit bad, but I'm not going to be like my mother.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be that kind of person who's always telling to herself, I'm depressed, I'm sad, I am this and I'm that. Mm-hmm. You know why? Because that's who you know. You know that. And then I was saying, you know what? This is not going to happen to me. I want to find a way. I want to understand why this is happening to me, or where is this coming from? And as soon as I understand, as soon as I track down the thing, all right, let's go. Let's move on. What am I going to do now? That's what matters the most to me. That's what I'm. That's the kind of message. No message. It's my message to the people. It's like, all right, your backstory. I don't care anymore. I don't care my backstory. I know it's important to understand. Yeah, I agree with that. But now, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Am I going to spend the hours like, I'm anxious, I'm stressed, I'm depressed.
Reaffirming all that stuff that we want to get out of, but if we keep reaffirming it, we will stay there.
Yeah, it's a trap. It's a trap. You fall into a trap, and you keep believing that that's who you are, but it's not. It's not. It's in a state. It's not you. It's in a state.
Yeah. I'm hearing very clearly here on a number of levels that you don't like labels, and I don't like labels either.
No.
Because labels will box you in to a certain way of thinking. And if we drop the labels and we simply look at what is and what we can make something then be, and again, looking at our perspective, how can I look at this situation from a different perspective? And therefore, can I work out how to stop feeling that way and stop telling myself that I am that way? Like you use the example of your mother. For 40 years, she was very depressed. That, to me, if I can say it, is very sad, because I know what it is like to feel depressed. And it is so trapping to the rest of your life. And it does affect, like yourself, as her son, it affects people around you.
Yes.
And so getting to that point where you can acknowledge that you do have the opportunity here to change that internal language, it is so important. Such a powerful moment to get that awareness.
Yeah.
What a journey already that you've been through.
You're right. Yes. And then that's why sometimes my message is misunderstanding. That's why I remember the last book that I was like saying, you don't have to spend 30 years to be an expert or to have the right to talk about PTSD. I don't buy it. You don't have to. Today's way out. It begins today. It begins today, right now. Not tomorrow. Today, right now, in this very moment. I have to believe it.
It's Vera-Lee from Australia, the founder of the WhyMe Movement and podcast. Well, one idea, one vision, one person. This self-funded podcast and movement has started to take a life of its own, which is exactly where I had planned it would be. To hear the stories of the far-reaching impact across many countries in this world, it humbles me to know that my vision is shared, understood, and positively influencing people to look at the changes they can make for their own adversity and how they can find the strength, the courage to be inspired and feel connected and empowered to use their adversity to their advantage. One of the best ways that you can help support the WhyMe Movement and podcast is to subscribe to the various channels, such as the podcast platform you are listening to this on now and the YouTube channel, which has much bonus content released. By subscribing, you will make sure that you are one of the first to find out who is coming up next, more about our guests, and the interesting questions that I ask them, which do not get released on the podcast platforms, and lots of other good bonus content. I always love reading your comments, and so please feel free to leave them on each of the platforms. The beauty of social media is that you can easily share single episodes or any of that bonus content from YouTube onto your own social media platform with your friends, which helps to bring this positive, inspiring message to far more people, allowing you to be an active participant in the WhyMe movement and vision. On Apple Podcasts, it always makes a big difference if you can leave a rating, review, and subscribe to the show. Let's get back to today's story.
To convince yourself, in the same way, because it's just exactly the same way that we convince ourselves that we are sick, we are depressed, we are stressed. It is exactly the same way. Change the pattern and start saying, all right, there is a way out. I can do this. It's exactly the same. It's exactly the same pattern. Well, I choose I choose to believe in myself. That's what I choose. It's a choice at the end of the day. It's where we choose how to react. It's not, like you said, it's not up to other people. Your stress or my stress is my responsibility. No one is giving me stress. It's the meaning I give those moments, the meaning I give to those words, the meaning I give to those actions and events.
Yeah.
It's just me. It's my choice.
Yeah, that is so key. It's like being offended. And I realized a few years ago that people were choosing to be offended by things that I would say. And as soon as I realized that, I was like, whoa, because as I'm doing with you now, I talk very openly about my experiences in life. And for some people, they, for whatever reason, weren't ready to hear that. And so I might say something and they would take offense to it. And then I used to think, well, what did I say wrong? And then I realized it wasn't about what I said wrong, particularly when I'm simply sharing my experience. It was more about that they chose to feel offense to what it was that I was speaking. And quite often that is a red flag, if you like, for that person to become aware of why they're taking offense. Why am I being offended by what's being said here? If this is their truth, why does that offend me? And like you're saying, it's almost a pattern of thinking that can be broken, that can be reset and rewritten. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So how did you go about doing that yourself?
Well, like I said, I was so determined that I wanted to find a way out and start studying, getting training, implementing on myself. I was speaking with other people.
Yeah.
I was speaking with other coaches, with this, with that, with my wife, especially my wife and my family, and you know, it's like, and I knew this stuff before. I knew that speaking is a good thing, but you know, it's like when you start like, okay, I'll do later this, I'll do later that, I'll do later that, and then after a few months, you're a totally different person.
Yeah.
Completely totally different person. So that's what I did. I said, enough is enough. Enough is enough. I know this stuff. I know what to do because I've done it before in the past. Instead of keep thinking, oh, this happened to me, or poor me, I feel ashamed, embarrassed. Someone like me with a background with Krav Maga, teaching to the army, to the police, to the, you know, panicking in the prison when nothing happened. And I start panicking. Shit. Oh, sorry.
It's okay.
So I said, nah.
Yeah.
And we need, you know,
you needed to take those labels off yourself that you were giving yourself at that time.
Yeah. Self-labeling, get out. Labels are like, I understand the doctors or psychiatrists, they need to diagnose. All right, that's all good. Done. All right, what's next? My cousin is a psychiatrist in Spain, and I told her, I love what you're doing, but of those labels disempower people. Most of the people. I know it's the meaning that we give. I understand, but most of the people, they're giving a lot of meaning to those. And it's so good. I know what is coming. They have a main PTSD. Oh, good. Next.
Yeah.
Let's do something. And my cousin told me, okay, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, but we need this. I understand what's behind those labels. Not for me.
Yeah, and that's the thing. It's about working out what works for you, isn't it? And not everybody is going to be able to take that course of action and such massive action. And so for the people that do, I think, or I would guess that you would see that pattern in certain personnel that work in different industries because of the sort of personalities that they are. And we were talking before about Brendan Burchard's High Performance Habits book. And certainly in my experience, a lot of people who are high performers in their jobs, which includes a lot of your clientele, which is emergency services, law enforcement, sports people who are really in those, if you like, higher pressure situations and that can thrive on that to a point. until perhaps it does all come crashing down because of that intense pressure that they put on themselves to perform in their jobs and what they choose to do. That in itself almost becomes a pattern of a slow self-destruction if it's not managed well.
Yeah.
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 So what do you say for the people that do identify as high performers to be more aware of perhaps what's building up under the surface?
Yeah, well, normally what I normally say with my clients that I have now and with my colleagues when I'm at work, because, they start knowing the work that I'm doing. And I said, look, it's much simple. It's very simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but the principles are really, really easy. And for me, it all begins with the way you communicate to yourself.
Yeah.
For me, it's crucial. First to say, what do you mean? What do you mean? What do you say? Listen to me. The way you communicate to yourself. Listen to yourself every day and pay attention to your thoughts. Because the way you're going to do it is going to determine the quality of your life, the quality of your day, or your morning. So let's begin with the way we communicate. And then when you identify a negative pattern, stop it. It's all right, acknowledge. Acknowledge this because it's what our minds do. Just throwing thoughts, like I think the average is around 60,000 thoughts a day, which are 80% are negative and repeated from the day before. So can you imagine? So, and then we speak in one thought all the time. And then we make it true. We think it's real. We believe that's real for us. It's not. So identify the way you communicate to yourself. That's for me the very step. It's always what I'm saying to my friends or family or colleagues. It all begins with that.
Yeah, it absolutely does. That's our internal environment. That's how we're setting ourselves up to either fail or win at life, is what we're telling ourselves, because what you focus on is how you feel. And so, like you're saying, if 80% of what's going on there is negative and you focus on that, you will feel negative. Yeah. If you choose to focus on the positive and create more positive thinking and thoughts to yourself, particularly I found when you speak them out aloud as well, because then it allows your auditory system to process it, and then it's almost going in a bit of a loop. You think it, you speak it, you hear it, and then it's processed again. So for positive thoughts, that certainly helps. For negative thoughts, like you said earlier, people who say, I am depressed, I am this, I am that, well, they're going to almost embody that. Whereas if they say, well, I'm feeling a little low today, and the difference is not I am, but I am feeling, then, okay, why am I feeling that way? What can I do about that to change that around? So it's a whole different attitude, isn't it?
It is. It is. Because there's nothing wrong to feel bad or feel sad. But, it's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with that? It's what matters for me. Are we going to stick to the story? I'm going to say, all right, acknowledge and let it go. Let's go for the next.
Yeah.
I know it sounds very simple and silly. I might be silly. But it really works. And for me, it was a huge shift when I finally understood the meaning of the communication to ourselves. It was like oh my God, like a breakthrough, a massive breakthrough for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know about you, but for me, simple is effective. The more simple that your management techniques are, the more amidst the chaos of the situation when it gets out of hand for yourself, the more simple that your technique is, the easier it is to implement. Why do we need to complicate things?
Yeah. Because it's what our minds do. The human brain is wired to judge what's wrong because it wants to keep you safe.
Yeah.
So that's why we stick always with what's wrong. That's why these days it's quite common. People tend to gossiping and to judge others because this is what our minds do. That's it. There's nothing wrong with them. It's just that, and then we allow the mind to keep doing what it does the best, which is judging and looking for what's wrong to keep you safe. But the thing is, the brain hasn't been catching up with these days because this has been here for years and years and years and years. So the dangers from the past are completely different now.
Yeah.
The brain is trying to catch it up.
Absolutely. So that is such a good point. And video games are a classic example of that. So when you're sitting there playing a video game and it's exciting and you've got that excitement happening, and then maybe, I don't know, an alien jumps out in front of you and you're like, oh, and then you got to react to it. It's that surge of adrenaline that is our, flight, fight response. And like you said, that is our physiological reaction to when we used to be in an environment where predators were around and we had to keep ourselves safe. And so we were hyper vigilant in that respect for our own safety and longevity. Our body doesn't know the difference when we're receiving that stimuli now, and it still does the same response. And yet instead of running that out to run away from our prey or whatever the situation is, fighting off what was our enemy or our threat, this effect is happening within our body when we're sitting still, standing, or, in what's actually a less threatening environment. And it's interesting and important to note that we need to essentially train our mind how to rethink about those situations. And I love the fact that the first book you've written was called Breathe, because that is what got you through your anxiety attacks before you understood that that's what was going on. And that is the way that so often we can recenter ourselves to think about the moment logically instead of in that irrational, anxious state.
Yeah.
How important is breathing to you when those feelings come up?
Yeah, very important. Yeah, because believe it or not, something as simple as breathing, it changes everything. Something so simple like that. But we don't consciously breathe. We do we don't pay attention. Most of the time we go stress and, the body needs to, oxygenate properly.
Yeah, I've got a question for you about that, because you said that you instinctively took a few deep breaths and then you started to calm down.
Yeah.
Just going back to that moment where you ran into the toilets at work. Were you aware until you felt that shift in your energy? Were you aware that your breathing was quick and out of control? No,
until it hit.
Until the change, yeah. And that is...
like this, with physiology, like, what is this? And before that, not at all.
Yeah, and that is bringing light to the importance of what we're doing here, which is discussing these situations and allowing people to become aware of what are some of the signs to look for. So, for example, in yourself, or if you're watching someone who's going through a panic attack, for example, or having something going on, if you are aware that, hang on a minute, their breathing's just increased in the rate. They're now shallow breathing instead of deep breathing. That creates a physiological change as well. And again, it sets your body into that fight or flight response. And so the simple act of, okay, I notice that I'm breathing quicker, or I notice that you're breathing quicker. Let's just slow that down a little bit. Let's take some nice deep breaths into the bottom of your diaphragm. Sometimes that's all that you need to get out of that physiological state. And it is so important to recognize a lot of these symptoms. Yeah. Some of the other things that you were talking about was the shaking and some of that other stuff. If some of our listeners were going through an anxiety attack and they started feeling these things, what would be your advice to them in that moment to help them?
Yeah. Well, what worked for me is like just pay attention. When you start feeling that kind of difficulty breathing, and then you start shaking, just, I know it might sound like, oh, how can I do that? But you need to, what it is close your eyes, breathe in through your nose, hold them for a few seconds, and breathe out through your mouth several times, and don't panic. It's all good. Nothing's going to happen. I mean, you're not going to die that moment. No one has died. I died in a panic attack. I'm talking panic attack, no heart attack. So that's what I did instantly. Like, I closed my eye, hold in a few seconds, breathe out. And again, for a few times until you calm down. And obviously after that, you need to go to see your doctor.
Yeah.
Or hospital, like I did, and explain what happened. It's just in case. It's just in case. Something else too. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I'd like to touch a little bit on your wife too. So after that first panic attack happened, you went home and told your wife, and then the second one happened while you're at home. And she was like, well, what's going on, especially when you're telling her how to call emergency services. How is she going with, or let me backtrack a moment, how is she, through you working through the PTSD diagnosis? And I could imagine that not being able to speak English would have made things even more difficult for her to try and understand if, you know, people were around talking about things and she can't understand what's going on. So how did she deal with all of this?
Fortunately, she's been doing really well.
Great.
Because my wife and I, we had a very good team. we work together, and she doesn't speak. She understands something, but if I have to be honest, she's been doing really well with this, because
that's great.
I was explaining her like everything, like, you know, you need to be aware that this might happen, but don't scared, don't be afraid, because I'm telling you this, and then because we have like a lot of communication, so yeah, she understood, and then we've done it really well. I'm very proud of ourselves and the way that we did everything, like the way that I thrived and I growed, and the way she understood this, and then she was helping me. I mean, I have always been supportive, really very supportive with me, my wife. So that helped a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to come back to what you said about the book. You know, having acceptance and courage. And within that, communication is so important, as is trust. And when you have good open communication like that, and as you said, I love the way that you call your wife and yourself as a team. I love that. You've allowed that trust to be built so that you're telling her, okay, this is what's going on now that we have a bit more understanding. It's okay. We're going to get through this together. And she trusted you, and she's gone through this process with you. I think that's a beautiful thing for you both to grow together through this.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah, that's so wonderful.
Yeah, I still remember those days, because she was really very scared. Can you imagine? Telling you need to do this, teaching how to CPR, and for me to do that, because I'm not the one who is freaking out for nothing. My wife knows me. Yeah, like if I'm feeling that way, because it's really a serious thing, nothing like that.
She knew that you were scared.
Yeah. She saw me scared. I think she never saw me scared in that way, Yeah. No, not at all.
Yeah, look, that must have been a very confronting moment for both of you, because not only were you very scared, you had to communicate that to her, which then made her feel very scared. But I think, hats off to both of you for working through that moment together as a team. It brings to light the importance of the people around you. And I know Tony Robbins has a saying that proximity is power. It's also that
level of proximity with the person that you live with, your special person, your partner in life. It's that proximity of trust and communication and transparency and really being able to work through whatever will come your way together as a team.
Yeah, the psychologist is for me. You need to. I mean, your wife doesn't speak English. I said no, because I would like to talk to her because it sometimes can be really hard just living with someone. And I said, no worries, I'm gonna do all my best, and so we did.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love your can-do attitude. Take action, get it done.
Yeah,
and that not stuffing around. Why take more time than you need? And everyone will take different amounts of time. Everyone will go through the process in their own way. And what you're providing people is an opportunity to try your way, which has worked so well for you, to see if that can shortcut some of that suffering.
Yeah. Exactly. Because we have the Tony Robbins says that unleash the power within. But I really believe that we have an immense power within that we can heal ourselves 100%, 100%.
Yeah.
I'm not holding back my word. 100%. Yeah.
Yeah. So you don't identify as someone who has PTSD anymore?
No. That was my experience.
Yeah.
And something that I shared, but as an experience and to like I said, like I'm a living proof, a living evidence that you can find a way out, and you can even thrive, and you can even transform your life. Not because you've been suffering from this means that your whole life is going to be this way. No. I didn't buy it to me, and I'm going to buy it to anyone. No.
Yeah.
If I made it, if I did it, or if I could, you definitely can. I'm not special. I'm not smarter than anyone. Not at all. Not at all. No.
This is what I love about each of the guests I've had on so far, is that everybody has had that level of humility where they're like, look, I'm just a normal person like you. And yet I've gone through this thing and I've learnt so much from it, and I've made that choice to use that knowledge to my advantage, to grow personally and to now help other people. That's a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, I really believe that. Yeah, gosh.
Yeah, well, you wouldn't be able to do it if you didn't believe it. Let's face it. I mean, belief is underpinning everything here that we've been talking about. If people would like to get in contact with you, Bruce, how can they do that?
Well, at the moment, I'm on Facebook, like my name, Bruce Sanchez. And I don't have any websites or something like that yet. You can just type my name, Bruce, which is easy, Bruce. Because the funny thing, the origin of my name, because I'm born here in Australia, in Melbourne. But I grew up in Spain, and I came back like 6 years ago.
Right.
Yeah. And just before we finish, one of the things that I told you that I overcame, and I've been thriving through pain, my English. I like to say this because I learned English on my own in 6 years. I never went to English school, just watching movies, dictionary, asking people, and doing that. In 3 years ago, I got a job in a prison after being 3 years here with zero English. My English was like a hello, how are you? 6 years ago from tomorrow. 6 years ago from tomorrow. So, and for me was like, I thought, English it is in Spain, hello, good morning. That's when I came here. I said, what is this? The accent, everything.
Yeah.
I said, oh my God. 6 months later, I got my first job in a chemist's house after 6 months.
Fantastic. Well, I can tell you're a very determined person, and that goes a long way. If you want to achieve something and you set yourself goals, fantastic.
Yeah.
You're halfway there already, aren't you?
Yeah,
before you even start.
Yeah, you need to burn the boats, remember? You need to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Well, look, it's been a pleasure having you on today. I thank you very much. And I will put the link for your Facebook profile in the show notes so people can click on that to contact you if they wish.
Thank you so much. And Mia, it's a huge pleasure to share this moment with you and have this beautiful conversation. I really loved it.
Great. I'm really glad you did. Thank you so much. And what I say to people is, if you like what you hear, tell everybody you know, because each of us can do with a bit of hope, a bit of inspiration, a bit of empowerment. And hearing stories like yours is so important for all of us to have that opportunity to connect and to receive those messages that can help all of us in our journey in life.
Yeah. And your voice, let me tell you that your voice is engaging. I like it. I like your voice, your tonality. Oh, I love it. I have to tell you, it's like you wanna listen more. You wanna, because because I don't know, it's something special in your voice that I like it. It's like very engaging. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. There's an interesting story about my voice. Well, there's a number of interesting stories. When I was very young, and I actually just had this conversation with my dad today because he listened to the podcast for the first time and he said to me, you have a great voice for podcasting, for radio, which I've sort of always known in recent years. And my son has an incredible voice. Like, I can't tell you. He needs, like, he's just amazing. Not even a stint on, like, I'm not even a stint on where he is coming from. But when I was very young, I had a very high-pitched voice. And so I was talking up in the top of my register all the time. And I spoke very quickly too. And my dad pulled me aside one day and I said to him today, I think I was around about 6 to 8 years old. And he remembered the moment too. And he said, yeah. He pulled me aside and he said, Vera, you need to stop talking like this. Try and lower your register and slow down. And I did. And I learnt from that. And it probably took me a couple of years. What I found was that once I understood and I resonated, like literally resonated with the vibration from my voice in that lower register, which is my natural register, once I realized that and I embraced that, I even calmed myself. It's an interesting thing. And again, it's actually very simple in that when I just allow my vocal cords and everything to relax as much as I can, because I have a condition called vocal cord dysfunction. So, and it's a rare form of it. So all my life I've struggled to breathe because they close up when they shouldn't. They collapse when I breathe in. And I didn't even have a voice for a 2-year period while I was receiving treatment. I didn't know if I'd ever get my voice back. And so now having my voice and being able to talk again at this age and stage in my life, I understand the importance of speaking that little bit slower, even for myself, for it allows people the time and space to sit with what you're actually saying and to process it. And so that's a little bit of an interesting story about my voice. It never used to be technically like this, and it was from that's my vocal cord getting away. It was due to me accepting exactly who I am as a person that allowed me to fully step into my voice, if you like. Yeah. It's also why I've created a guided visualization series, because I understand the impact that my voice has on people with the accent as well, in that when I speak, people do want more. They're always telling me, I want to hear more of your voice. And so I created this visualization series of guided meditation to help people to relax, to help people to understand they don't need to learn and work really hard at meditation. They can simply listen to a voice that they resonate with and go through the process almost as an observer and still receive the benefits of it. And so there's some of the things that I now do. And it's wonderful to be able to impact so many people so positively.
Yeah, look at that. See, didn't know that.
No.
It's always a story behind every person. It's always a story.
There is always a story. And my tagline when I started my first business 16 years ago, my tagline was, everyone has a story if we're willing to listen.
Yeah.
And I still believe that.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Well, another story, more WhyMe moments and more reasons to feel inspired to change your adversity into your advantage. An integral part of the vision of the WhyMe movement is the Ice acronym, I's for inspire. When you feel inspired, you are more likely to take action. C is for two things, actually. Connection. You are not alone in this world. There are always people here who want to help you get through your adversity and feel positive about your life and your purpose. It is also for courage. Courage, in my opinion, is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. And there lies the importance of connection. For sometimes we don't feel we have the courage to do things on our own. And yet once we have the emotional support of those people who we trust, it can help us to feel that fear and do it anyway. And lastly, the E is for empower. When we have that connection and the courage and the inspiration to know, get our clarity of purpose, well, that is when we feel empowered to take the action that we want to do to change some aspect of our lives for the better. If you would like my personal support in this area to help you get through adversity in your life, you can contact me at Vera-Lee Original on social media.